In this section, we're going to talk about what is a blockchain, both in terms of as a technology, but also more conceptually, like in general, what is a blockchain trying to do? So in terms of the technology side, number one, obviously a blockchain is a piece of software. It's a piece of software that runs on the internet, but it operates very differently from a lot of the other software that we're used to, which uses what is called a client-server model. So generally, if you're connecting to, say, an Amazon or Facebook, they are the server. They're doing the heavy lifting. They're doing a lot of the processing. They're feeding you the data. And then on your side, you being the client, you just have a small window or a little light portal into what they're feeding you. So you have this, generally it's a web browser, and that's your client program. So that's generally a lot of the applications that we uses that model. However, there is an alternative model that is known as a peer-to-peer system. A good example of this would be BitTorrent. That's something you're maybe familiar with, the file sharing platform, where you can move files between, generally music files, between different participants in the network, and everyone is running the same software. Everyone is playing an equal part. So if you are downloading a file from someone else, you're getting it from another individual on the platform. That file gets routed along other people that are participating in the network until it ends up at your machine. And vice versa, you're also involved with routing other people's files through the network. So that's very different from the client-server model, such as if you're downloading a song from iTunes, Apple is doing all the work. Like they have the music and they're feeding it directly to you. Another example of something that's peer-to-peer is Skype. When you make a Skype call, you are routed through other participants on the network. Your machine is also involved with moving Skype calls between two other people. So you're not necessarily going through Skype servers through some central operator, and instead you can be routed directly to someone else. Although with Skype, it is a bit of a hybrid model. Nobody knows exactly how Skype works, especially since Microsoft acquired them some years ago. There's really a tight lid on that. But it is definitely different from voice over IP, where you are always going through some central server. Another term that you hear a lot with respect to peer-to-peer is distributed, which is that same idea that the operation of this whole network is spread across many, many different participants. You can also think of a distributed network as one where if you were to cut the network in half, if you were to have now two parts, each of these parts can just operate independently on its own, as if it did before. Like there is no, it's not like the network goes down, which would happen in the case if Apple is, say, cut off, then your iTunes program would no longer operate. So a blockchain is another peer-to-peer piece of software. What it's doing, though, it is maintaining a record. It's a distributed record-keeping system. It does it in a way where everyone gets a complete copy of the record. Everyone sees the whole history, everything that's happening to this record. And the blockchain guarantees that everyone is in sync. This program, that's the innovation of the program, is by making it so that everyone has full confidence that whatever record they have is the same record that everyone else has. Just to know that distributed systems doesn't necessarily pertain just to computer systems. This is something that happens out in the world and other programs too, or other systems too, rather. A good example of this would be natural language. So language itself evolves in a very distributed way. So there is no central operator that dictates what words get added to a language, how words should be pronounced. Instead, it sort of evolves organically among different populations. So you can have a language like Latin that evolved into Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, French, and all these other languages. So that's what a blockchain is operating in that same way, where everything is distributed across this whole network. I should say it's not just a record-keeping system. It's also a lot of rules and even full programs that are operating on that data. So you can have different conditions and how the data should change over time under different conditions. And all those rules and programs are also kept in sync among all the participants in the network. So it's sort of like if you have a Google Doc where everybody is looking at the same document and we all see the same thing. However, in the case of Google, everything is managed or controlled by Google. So if somehow Google goes down or blocks or restricts access to a document, which does happen occasionally, or they do sometimes intentionally or accidentally block access to people's Google Docs or emails. Now, in this alternative system, there is no central party that can do that. I should also say that it's not just data that is being kept in sync across this network. It's not just a record, but it's also rules and other operations, even full programs that can operate on that data. So everyone also has some kind of computer code that executes on this shared record system, and it will execute identically for all the participants in the network. So that's what a blockchain is. It's a peer-to-peer or distributed record-keeping system, which also has some rules